Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News For You, and if you've just turned over from Channel 5, I don't blame you. In the news this week, to save time on his busy schedule, Bill Clinton boards the presidential jet already prepared for the air hostess. After a Stockport man accidentally inhales too much helium, doctors come up with a drastic remedy. And in Berlin, a demonstration demanding equal rights for nudists suffers from a disappointing lack of solidarity. On Ian Hislop's team is one of the stars of a new daytime TV show called Light Lunch, a title which came to Channel 4 executives over a 5-course meal at the Dorchester, Sue Perkins. And with Paul Merton tonight, a journalist who left the Sunday Mirror while Robert Maxwell was still in charge, but fortunately managed to transfer her pension fund to Barings just in time, Eve Pollard. Just as all good things must come to an end, so all bad things must start. In this case, round one. Ian and Sue. A familiar ring to this one.
That's Mohammed Sawa.
Good to see some hand models in work there. Just doing a bit of hand modelling.
And there he is again, saying I've won.
In Glasgow.
Very good. Literacy. Don't usually get that in my partners. No, this is a new Labour MP who's taken modelling himself on the Conservatives a bit far. He's been accused of putting money in brown envelopes and giving it to people, just like Mohammed Al-Fayed. Anyway.
Claims it was a loan. £5,000 loan, but he doesn't want it back.
Right. It's about as convincing as the Hamiltons.
Yes. Yes, allegedly. It's always a good idea to attack someone else. I always think when asked a question about something that is so litigious, just lay into the Hamiltons, I think.
No, there's a certain parallel there, I think.
As yet unproven. And what's this man's background? Where does he make his fortune?
Oh, cash and carry.
A very apt name.
Yeah, indeed.
Not that we should read anything into
Allegedly.
that at all. Yeah. Yes. In fact, who has offered him help in handling the media?
Thora Heard.
No, someone that you just mentioned, in fact.
Neil Hamilton.
The very same.
He said he'll help him out. Poor old Mohammed Sawa. That's the end of him, then.
Yeah, pretty much so. Yes, it is the allegations of Labour sleaze denied by the new Labour MP, Mohammed Sawa. Tony Blair is furious at the further suggestion that Mr Sawa's people offered a Conservative candidate £50,000 to run a half-hearted, lacklustre campaign, as in the rest of the country the Tories did it for free. Paul and Eve.
Well, that's Frank Dobson on his way to he's on his way to see Stephen Hendry play snooker, and they've heard about it. He's going to see Stephen Hendry play snooker as well. And those are some people having a fag around the back of the bike sheds.
Well, you got the last bit right. Yes.
Sponsorship.
Yes.
Tobacco sponsorship of sport is no longer going to be allowed. Benson Hedges will have to pull out cricket. Embassy will have to pull out snooker.
Women might have a sex life if they don't get any other sponsors, mightn't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means, but I agree with you.
I'll draw you a diagram later.
Thank you.
Yes. Wondering if you knew how it was they were getting round this, because there is a way of advertising for tobacco companies.
Yes, you can advertise their lighters and all that other stuff. Cigarette papers, then it leads you to something else, doesn't it?
Or because cricketers are all in white, if they set their hair on fire, they look like giant cigarettes.
Yes, that is, of course, correct. You smoke, don't you, Sue?
Sometimes.
Why did you take it up?
It's because your name is similar to Super Kings.
It is.
Just put the emphasis in earlier. Sue Perkins, Super Kings.
And how old were you when you started?
4.
I'm sure that's right. In fact, 90% of people start when they're age 12. But that's probably because they're out of their heads on Alpha Pops at the time. A spokesman for the tobacco lobby said, "We defend sports sponsorship because we believe that there's no convincing evidence that sponsorship causes anybody to actually start smoking. Still nice of them to spend $100 million a year on the off chance they're wrong." One recent development in the world of sports sponsorship is the new digital poster site, which, when televised, can show different products in different countries. For example, in Britain it would say Adidas, in America it would say Coca-Cola, and in Albania it would say, "This is a television set, do not be afraid." News of the ban met with widespread approval, in particular from the new sports minister, Tony Banks, who went on to condemn all forms of drug taking. Ian and Sue, the story of O for you.
There's a man taking a leak. That's John Prescott. It's a close-up of Peter Mandelson's tongue the night after Labour won. But I don't know what the story is.
Yeah.
That's about John Prescott stopping water leaks. Because apparently Thames water, 38% of it, leaks out.
Yes, between the reservoir and the tap, it somehow gets lost.
Yeah.
Probably something to do with a pipe. It's the only connection I can think between the reservoir and the tap.
Right. Are you a professional plumber at all?
I am, yes.
Right.
I can call round Tuesday.
So this is, yes, the worst drought.
Prescott's called in the water companies. There's a
live.
set of targets they've got to hit to mend some pipes.
And if they don't, they'll be very cross.
And you know how cross John Prescott can get.
Very cross.
Right. And what are some of the other water-saving devices that he's suggested?
Keeping the taps turned off always.
I don't think it was anything quite as drastic as this. I think you are allowed to use bits of water occasionally.
Just for your face, just to dab.
Just a splash.
He suggested cleaning your teeth with a glass of water.
That's not going to help, is it?
What about a toothbrush? God, New Labour have got a lot to learn.
It is the Water Summit called by John Prescott. According to the Daily Express, which published an in-depth report on the Water Summit, fish are particularly vulnerable in times of drought. And finally, in this round, Paul and Eve.
This is the Teletubbies thing,
Teletubbies,
isn't it?
yes.
Which is...
They're children.
They're children.
Very good.
Those are not children, or...?
It must be to do with them, I don't know why, parents complain that people talking rubbish on television was bad for their children. When you think of programmes like this, you wonder why they're
Yes, exactly.
complaining now.
Never does.
But they're complaining about this, whether they just think it's not exciting enough or not educational enough. There has been a complaint.
Right.
No, it's been more than a complaint. It's been massive outrage. The nation is up in arms. The BBC is being stormed by irate parents. No, it's these Teletubbies are clearly dreamt up by someone, well, who's been using stimulants other than coffee.
Yeah.
They're mad, the Teletubbies.
Yeah.
They're completely bonkers. They run around talking drivel and throwing themselves at each other, screaming.
What do you think Bill and Ben were on, then?
BBC One.
So you've actually watched Teletubbies, have you?
Might have done.
I've seen a
He
picture.
auditioned for it.
Do you know the names, then, of the Teletubbies?
La La.
La La.
Pee-wee,
Po.
Whistle Chops and Portillo.
Bum.
And there's one called Posh Teletubby.
Oh, no, you got most of them right. Tinky Winky, Dipsy,
La-la.
thank you,
Po. Po.
and Poe. And do you know what other show is made by the same makers?
World in Action.
Deformed space-hopping guinea pigs on crack cocaine.
I know which one you're referring to, but no,
It really is very good.
It's in fact called Rosie and Jim.
Oh, Rosie and Jim. I can't... They frighten
They're pretty
me.
creepy, aren't they,
They are
Rosie
very
and
creepy.
Jim?
They hang around on a barge. You've got spongy faces. Very big eyes. A bit like yourself,
They're always
Angus.
pretending not to be alive and then coming
Yeah.
Yes, I think you can have all your points. It is the BBC's new children's show, Teletubbies. The bright colours and weird shapes worry many parents who see sinister subliminal drug messages in the show and want to return to old-fashioned children's television like The Herb Garden, Little Weed and Puff the Magic Dragon. So at the end of that first round, for all you binary fans out there, the scores are 100 all. Round 2 this week returns us to the muck-ridden swamp of tabloid journalism. One headline of urgent national importance per team. Ian and Sue. Who are movie star?
Cantona. Eric Cantona. He has left
Eric,
football.
that was beautifully said.
Eric left football, came back to football, left football, got back to football, went home to his mum, came back to football, left, resigned, came back, and apparently now he's going to be a film star.
So we hear.
No, he was in a film called La Bonne Heure, I think.
Le Bonheur, yes. But he has been offered a part in a film already, even though...
He's been offered a part as a rugby player.
He was playing a rugby player in Le Bonheur dans le Pré.
Oh, I see.
But the new film is...
Un joueur de rugby.
Yes. What was he in the news recently?
Well, he was in a painting.
Oh, yeah.
Someone did
Oh,
a
yes.
pastiche of a painting
Of
by
Friar
Piero
Angelico.
della Francesca of the Resurrection. A rather good painting. Having got called an arsehole by Paul last week for suggesting I'd been abroad, I won't mention the fact that I've seen it.
Where did you see it?
It's in Umbria. I think it's in San Sepolcro. It's in one of those villages.
You complete arsehole. To bore you even further, Ian, whose is great
No, this
hero?
is terribly interesting.
Any idea? Are you...
Who's Cantona's hero?
Rambo.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
The poet Rambo.
Oh, the poet. What chance has a poet got in the jungle? A poet wouldn't even know how to fire a bazooka. Or rhyme it.
He actually likened Rambo to, or the works of Rambo, to the pass from Pelé to Carlos Alberto in the 1970 World Cup final, which we can see here now. Ian, perhaps you'd like to talk us through it.
Here we go. That's Pelé to Dipsy, Dipsy to La 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 La.
Paul and Eve, your cryptic allusion is Lotcha.
Yes, well, I would guess from it's the use of the Old Sun headline, Gotcha, which they use in the Falklands War. This is about the fuss over Lenny Lottery, the journalist who left the Sun and then went to the Mirror, and then the Sun complained that he still had the suit, and they had to go to court to get the suit back. It was a white suit with red balls on it, and now he's got a red suit with white balls on it.
A normal tabloid, in-fight, journalistic drama shock horror. You can always tell when someone's going to leave a newspaper. They get what car, because they know that their car's going to be improved. So you can tell they come in with what car, and you say, you're leaving? No, no.
What does Lenny actually do?
He goes to, Camelot, finds out everything you can possibly know about every lottery winner, and does stories that the Sun don't often print.
Well, they're going to not renew Camelot's contract,
Licence.
I believe. It's a slightly odd system where the public are basically giving a whole load of money, and then the government take it. But the last government decided to put a middleman, Camelot, in the middle. So the public give Camelot the money, Camelot takes some of it, say thank you very much, and then pass the rest on to the government. So they're going to cut out the middleman.
Just a pure interest to no one. The Mirror devoted over 4 pages to the Lenny Lottery story, but still made sure it gave adequate coverage to Robin Cook's mission statement on the international role of Britain in the 21st century. The Sun has now introduced another lottery star, Lady Lucinda Lottery. There she is. According to The Sun, every week she chooses the same numbers, including 36, 24, 35, her vital statistics, and 10, her dress size. And Widdicombe would use the same system, but the numbers only go up to 49. Which deluge of trivia leaves us waving and drowning at the end of this round, and the situation is that both teams are absurdly level, sharing as they do an even 6. Round 7 doesn't exist, so instead let's concentrate on round 3. Our quarterly odd one out. Paul, your classic quartet is Franz Schubert, Al Capone,
Yes.
Henry VIII, and Bill Clinton.
Topical news quiz strikes again. Franz Schubert had syphilis and so did Henry VIII.
So what?
But they got it off each other. And Al Capone was doing the catering, so he's got syphilis as well. And Bill Clinton's had syphilis, but he didn't inhale. Is Bill Clinton the odd one out? because he's the only one who hasn't had syphilis.
Why would we have chosen Bill Clinton, of all people?
Well, the Bill Clinton is promising to get rid of syphilis. by staying at home more. I mean, I don't know. What more is there to know? Which is the odd one out? Bill Clinton. The reason the other three had syphilis. What more do you want?
Are you suggesting you got the answer right, then?
Well, I'm suggesting that Al Capone, Franz Schubert and Henry VIII all had syphilis and Bill Clinton hasn't, which makes him the odd one out because the other three had syphilis. I don't really know how else I can put those words into another order which will satisfy you in any way.
Right.
Is the answer Raspberry Ripple?
I am going to have to give you 2 points, aren't I? Yes. Although there is a reason why.
Yeah, we'll just get on with it.
Which is that last week he made an apology to the people of Alabama.
Oh, that's right. Yes. About 60 years ago, wasn't it? These black guys were deliberately infected, or people who had syphilis were deliberately not treated as a long-term experiment to see what happened to people if you didn't treat them for syphilis, and he apologised last week.
Yes, that is exactly the answer. According to a leading medical expert, the symptoms of syphilis include violent mood swings, a tendency to repeat yourself, and violent mood swings. Shit, I already said that. Surrounded by his family, Schubert's final words on his deathbed were, "Here is my end." The state it was in, I'd have thought it was hardly something he wanted to show off. Eve, your 3 women and a frog are Cherie Booth, Harriet Harman, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Kermit Roosevelt.
I think this may have something to do with schools. Am I in the right area here?
No, I think it's syphilis.
I thought maybe it was where they'd been to school or whether they hadn't been to school.
Why? Have they all been to the same school?
Kermit couldn't have gone to the same school as Harriet Harman because she went to a girls' school, didn't she?
Oh, his sister went there, Miss Piggy Roosevelt.
Along with Gonzo.
Did Harriet Harman and Cherie Blair come first and second, respectively, in impersonator pillar box contest? With your man? Well, Harriet Harman has sent, there was some fuss, was it son or daughter?
She sent her son.
To a private school, and
Cherie
has done the same.
They grant maintained, they're not private.
Oh, right.
Big difference for New Labour.
But with a name like Kermit, you couldn't send him.
Yeah, he got to be the odd one out. His name's Kermit. How could you send him to school? We've been to a pulp before we got to sit down for the first register. What's your name? Kermit Wallop.
He's actually one of 4 Kermits. There's a Kermit in every generation of the Roosevelts.
Is there really? The last one did very well for himself, didn't he?
No, it's a name question.
Only one of them's called Cherie.
The answer is that they've all kept their maiden names after they married, apart from Kermit Roosevelt, who tragically inherited his mother's maiden name as a Christian name. Eleanor, in fact, didn't have to change her maiden name because her maiden name was the same.
Exactly.
Because she married a cousin. For some strange reason, Harriet Harman chose not to take her husband's surname, and her 3 children all have her name too, which apparently rather upset her husband, Mr. Jack Goatee Bollocks. Sue, your 4 beauties are Mark Morrison, Peter Mandelson, Joan Collins, and Robert Maxwell.
I think it's got something to do with trials. Is my first guess.
For why?
Mark Morrison recently in court for a thing, I can't remember what it was, so let's say an alleged punching of somebody.
He threatened a policeman.
Really?
Yeah, he's
Something
gone,
like
he's
that.
gone down.
He has gone down.
Quite literally.
Joan Collins was sued by Random House because they foolishly paid her to write a book and were surprised it wasn't very good, so to take her to court.
Oddly.
I think the odd one out is Robert Maxwell. I think he never was the defendant in a case.
I mean, I hate to disagree with my partner, but I'm desperate for the points, obviously.
Right, yeah.
This is about crying in public. Peter Mandelson recently cried in an interview when someone brought up the subject of his father dying. Mark
Morrison,
the well-known rap star.
just how well known is he?
Who I know an extremely large amount about, cried when he was sent down. Robert Maxwell, I just happened to know, cried in a court case against a magazine. which she subsequently won. At the time, I remember sitting there in court writing, "takes out onion." But I never had any proof of this until I met someone years later, after Maxwell had died, a man who was involved in another case, who said he'd seen Maxwell the evening after he'd been crying in court, and he'd said to him, "Forget Rada, you should see me." What a charming man he was. Anyway, he didn't cry in court, he cried on television.
He being?
Peter Mandelson. So he's the odd one out, and it's about crying in court.
Is the right answer.
Well done.
Very good. During a legal action against her publishers, Joan Collins burst into tears when the prosecutor criticised her steamy sex novel and read out several lurid passages. And Miss Collins asked if she could go into a private room for a few minutes with a box of tissues, which was a coincidence as the judge had just made the same request. In 1986, Maxwell burst into tears during a libel case against Private Eye, which had printed photos of him and Ronnie Cray next to each other as lookalikes. He said he was utterly devastated to be compared with such a notorious villain, and Maxwell wasn't too happy either. And finally, Ian, in ascending order of political influence, Rupert Allison, Glenda Jackson, John Prescott, and Madonna.
Is this people who've become MPs?
Well, you noticed that Rupert Allison was an MP, Glenda Jackson was also an MP, and John Prescott was also an MP.
So the odd one out is Madonna, who stood for Selly Oak but lost to the Lib Dems. They've all worked as bar persons. John Prescott worked as a steward, serving drinks. Rupert Allison... what can you say?
Not very much, because he's suing us at the moment.
Well, I mean, what does Rupert Allison do now? Because he lost by a couple of votes, rather sadly. Oh, just a couple of votes and he's out of work, so...
But there was a story that revolved around why he lost, or indeed how he lost.
Why don't you tell it? Because you do tell them awfully well.
No, thank you very much. Well, in the run-up to the election, he went to a place called the Thatch Tavern in Torquay and forgot to leave a tip. And so the 14 waiters who were working there decided to switch their votes to Lib Dem. He lost by 12 votes.
Well, Glenda Jackson's worked as a waitress.
Yes.
And Madonna's worked as a waitress.
Yep.
And John Prescott, as Ian said, worked as a sort of barman.
On the boat.
Star steward or whatever. So that's it then, isn't it?
It is, unfortunately, the right answer. Very good. Madonna worked in Dunkin' Donuts, where she was sacked for squirting strawberry jelly all over the customers. Some people would pay good money for that nowadays. Glenda Jackson was once a waitress, then more famously an actress before becoming an MP, although in her bid to save London's tube system, she showed she hadn't lost her flair for melodrama.
I'm sorry, London Underground. We won't let this happen to you.
And that was only take 13 as well. All of which serves as our final helping of this round, and the position is that both teams are still stuck in the middle with 9. Our final missing words round is quite literally the last of our problems. 2 clutches of half-cocked headlines ripped from the dailies, and who knows, perhaps from this week's guest publication, the Sunday Mirror, or more specifically, the In Bed with Eve feature.
It is coming out, actually, as a compilation illustrated bedside table book.
Oh dear, so we've acted as a plug for this book. Oh, inadvertently walked into your trap.
Absolutely.
Damn. So first off, Fergie on what hunt?
James.
Tiger.
The.
Ellie.
You were closer the first time. Tiger is in fact the right answer. Reference to?
Tiger Woods, the new golfer.
Yes, who's already won £37 million prize money.
Can't think why she'd be interested then, can you?
Who knows? Next, pick up what and start moving your hips.
Your legs.
I do know this.
Pick up Eve late of an evening.
It's a dance manual.
Yes, to seduce your partner, put on smoochy music, pick up a dance manual and explain to your partner you've always wanted a foxtrot.
Yeah. I find that works all the time.
Have you? Well, never heard it called foxtrot before, but there we are. Next, Queen may share what with Blair?
Needle. Aeroplane. Water wings.
Mandelson.
You were closest with aeroplane. Air Force One is how it put it. A jet, possibly an Airbus, which is to be shared between Buckingham Palace and Whitehall. Cricketers share a cab, I would have thought, but there we are. Next, eating between the sheets can be what?
Tastier than the sheets themselves.
Can be a great turn-on.
Is the right answer. Can be a great turn-on.
Oh, very good.
Although...
Or again, not.
So what things are good to eat between the sheets?
Not toast.
Not toast.
Everything apart from toast and something else, you said?
Roasted ox.
No.
On a spit. It chars your eider down. Singes your pillow.
Shellfish.
Oh.
Why shouldn't
I'd
we...
probably just had a round or two with a lobster in bed and put me off.
And lastly, what makes you live longer?
Doing things in slow motion.
Life support machines. Kidney transplant. God. Rooms.
Pussy is the right answer. If you stroke one, it reduces stress and extends your longevity. Apparently. Which excellent adventures bring us to the end of tonight's bogus journey, and the comic scenario is that this week's gruesome twosomes are Ian and Sue with 9, whilst this week's perfect couple are Paul and Eve with 15. And I leave you with news that on a remote island in the Pacific, Princess Diana's secret holiday is ruined by reporters from the local tabloid. Do It All announced that their new spring collection includes Saddam Hussein's favourite wallpaper pattern. And with his leadership campaign badly damaged, Michael Howard prepares for peace talks with Anne Widdecombe. Good night.